I hope members across the chamber will see this motion to support the call out for free school travel to children who have to move away from temporary accommodation to temporary accommodation as a constructive and closely aligned with the values and priorities of the Council, and seeing from the amendment you put forward, which I accepted, that you broadly absolutely agree and we are on the same page with this. Manchester, like many cities, is experiencing a severe housing crisis, rising rents, a shortage of genuinely affordable homes, and increasing insecurity in the private rented sector mean that more families are being pushed out of their communities and in some cases into temporary accommodation. This council has been clear through its housing strategy. It works to improve standards and security in the private rented sector, and that stability and prevention are key priorities. Despite this, the reality is that many families are being displaced from the areas where they have long lived, worked, and sent their children to school, often as a result of unaffordable rent increases or evictions from the private rented sector. Manchester City Council is rightly proud of its commitment to tackling homelessness, supporting children, and reducing inequality. However, for many families living in temporary accommodation, the impacts of homelessness extend well beyond housing alone, particularly when it comes to children's education and well-being. Across Greater Manchester and here in Manchester, families are increasingly being placed in temporary accommodation some distance from their original homes and schools. For children, this can mean long, exhausting, and costly journeys each day, just to remain in the same classroom with the same teachers and support networks at a time of significant instability. We know that maintaining school continuity wherever possible is in the best interest of children. It supports educational attainment, emotional well-being, safeguarding, and family resilience when everything else in a child's life may be uncertain. It is important to acknowledge the current position Manchester City Council does provide travel assistance to some school-aged children, many actually, including in certain cases where families are living temporary or in homeless accommodation. However, this support is not automatic. Eligibility is based on still too much on statutory criteria such as distance from school and income, meaning that many families affected by displacement and homelessness do not qualify and are left to meet transport costs themselves. In some cases, schools step in and provide discretionary help with travel to prevent disruption to a child's education. While this reflects the commitment of our schools, it's not sustainable or an equitable solutions. There are schools in the north of Manchester which apply to the Mayor's Fund to help them with that. Through my own casework, I've seen, as we all probably have, how disruptive this is for children and families. I have worked with households who were moved multiple times between different temporary accommodation placements. Parents often hold off on changing schools in the hope of securing a permanent home, which is absolutely logical, so their children can finally settle and rather than face repeated upheaval. What families consistently tell us is how deeply they feel the loss of their support networks, friends, and family when they are moved away from their communities. This motion also sits in the context of national reform of the private rented sector, including the planned abolition of the Section 21 no-fault evictions. While these changes are intended to improve tenant security in the long term, there is widespread recognition that they may lead to an increase in evictions in the short term, adding further pressure to temporary accommodation and council services. Councillor Gavin White and I spoke about this at the end of last year, and he kindly offered to arrange training for us members, which hopefully will happen soon, so we can address this issue together and get more information and help. This motion also recognizes the positive work already underway at a Greater Manchester level and Manchester level. We welcome the engagement of Greater Manchester and Manchester charities and the GMCA and note that the option for a city region-wide approach are being actively considered by the mayor. I better not mention his name. According to a coordinated Greater Manchester approach would also offer the benefit of reducing pressure on individual council budgets, enabling resources to be directed more strategically towards alleviating child poverty and supporting vulnerable families in our city. And I know that the mayor has had discussions with you and with the campaign, and there are very positive noises. We are hopeful it will be in the draft budget. This all looks good. So I'm really happy about working with you together on this. What this motion seeks is straightforward. It supports in principle a consistent and fair approach to free school travel for children placed in temporary accommodation, where distance creates a barrier to attendance. It signals Manchester City Council's willingness to contribute constructively to ongoing work, share local evidence, and help ensure that children are not further disadvantaged by circumstances.
Councillor Johnson, can you?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll leave it as that. I'm not happy with all the parts of the amendment, but we can talk about that at the second motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you to the opposition for accepting this amendment. We're glad that the amendment has been accepted because they actually really welcome this motion, particularly because it gives us a chance to talk about some of the things that we're really passionate about politically and some of the things that really matter in our city and steps that we've already taken. Reducing homelessness and reducing its impact on the families that experience it is and it has always been one of the top priorities of this Labour-run council. Labour councillors have consistently championed families facing homelessness, and I saw this firsthand when I was Children's Exec for 6 years. Many times people came to me representing children and families that were facing homelessness. We've consistently introduced policy to improve things for these families, including scrapping the use of B&B for families 10 years ago, and then introducing the very policy that this motion calls for to provide free transport for children who are faced in temporary accommodation over 2 miles from their home. As Children's Executive during that time, I visited schools across the city and I heard consistently the impact that homelessness has on the children in their schools and the extraordinary levels that schools go to support their families. Given that our policy already provides the support that's called for, we decided to strengthen this motion by asking officers to write to all councillors and to all schools in the city to remind them that this policy is in place and that families can get that support that is needed. In amending the motion, we did, however, feel that it's necessary to point out some of the bigger politics at play here, because homelessness and the rise in homelessness in our city is not an accident. It's a cost of the political choices made by Conservative and Liberal Democrat governments, choices which made affordable and social housing harder to build by cutting grants, choices which saw child poverty soar with the cutting of benefits, including the 2-child cap, and choices which saw our council budget slashed harder than almost anywhere else in the country. That we took the decisions that we did to support those in need, despite those pressures, and particularly on our budgets, is a huge testament to my Labour colleagues and shows the difference that Labour has made in our city. And finally, after 15 years, we do have a Labour government, a government that's making it harder for private landlords to evict their tenants, a government that's committed to reducing child poverty, including scrapping the 2-child cap, and a government that's committed to ending homelessness. So we agree, let's make sure that families get the help they need whilst in temporary accommodation, but what's more, let's keep them out of temporary accommodation in the first place. Move this amendment.
And I invite Councillor Misley to second the motion.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. So first of all, I want to thank the Manchester Evening News for choosing this as their campaign. Being made homeless and uprooted from your friends, family, schools, support networks is probably one of the most traumatic things that anyone can go through, let alone if children are involved. And that impact is often hidden because the visibility, the things we see are street homelessness, not family homelessness. So I think this campaign has really allowed us to shine a light on that impact. And also thanks to Councillor Johnson for bringing it here to the Chamber, because as Councillor Bridges said, it allows us to have a discussion about that and also to explain some of the things that we are doing behind the scenes to really work hard to tackle family homelessness. So as Councillor Bridges said, we have to place this in context, and the context is those political choices that were made from 2010, which led to the worst national, not just Manchester, but national homelessness and housing crisis that we've seen for decades. So I am really proud to say that we are one of the few councils in the country to have eliminated the use of B&Bs for families against national trends. In February 23, we had 137 families in B&B, some over the legal limit of 6 weeks. Today, I checked this morning and we have 4. We brought it down to 0 in June 2023, and since then it has always remained about that level. They are just placed there for an immediate period of time whilst that emergency is sorted out. So that goes against all national trends, and it's due to the hard work of our homelessness teams that have really brought that change about. We're also bucking the trend in overall figures in temporary accommodation. Nationally, it's gone up 30% over recent years. If we'd followed that increase, today we would have 4,174 families in TA. It's 2,800. Now, I'm not saying that's good. Obviously, that's 2,800 too many. But compared to national figures, we've managed to keep it fairly stable and also bring it down recently. I want to tell you about a really exciting project we've been involved in over the last year with the Shared Health Foundation. They've piloted in Manchester a new notification system to schools. The notification system is based on consent with parents, but allows the local authority to email the school and GP to let them know that the child has been taken into temporary accommodation. The school is also sent an email with guidance about how they might support that child, for example, being flexible around start times, uniform, and also helping them with somewhere to do their homework. The government have now made this mandatory based on the success of that trial, and it will be included in the Children's Wellbeing and Schools Bill. And I want to really congratulate the work of the Shared Health Foundation for all they've done to advocate for children in temporary accommodation, raise awareness of their experiences and the progress that they've made in getting many of their policy demands into statutes. We've also got a floating support team that visit families placed in temporary accommodation within 10 days to check that they are settled and that what support they might need with filling in forms, etc. So these are things that we do to try and support families when they're placed in temporary accommodation. But obviously we don't want them to be there. We want to prevent them from being there in the first place. And we've been investing in lots of preventative measures. So, for example, the Manchester Communication Academy, a brilliant school in Harper Hay, has led the way in showing how schools can support young people. Working with partners like Shelter and council workers, they help families that are facing housing crisis, problems with landlords, and really have come together to show other schools how to support those families and prevent homelessness and support them if it happens. So we're really pleased. So those are short-term measures, but we're really focusing as well on the main cause of homelessness. So one of the big causes is domestic abuse. We've invested £250,000 in a Safer at Home scheme to help those at risk of domestic abuse stay in their own homes. And we've had 187 referrals for target hardening of homes in the last year. We've got prevention hubs out in the community through our family hubs work, trying to have those face-to-face conversations with families early on through mediation and financial support to prevent homelessness. But the important one, and you raised this, Councillor Johnson, we want to try and prevent families being uprooted and moved from their, where they originally live. So our real focus at the minute is to increase the supply of temporary accommodation within Manchester. So at the minute, we're really excited that we have got some land in Hume, in Didsbury, to build some family apartments for people experiencing families experiencing homelessness. As you know, in your ward, we've just purchased a block of flats for smaller families, expectant mums, families with toddlers. So anyone from Wythenshawe who's made homeless can go there rather than be uprooted across the city. And one I'm really proud of, and you may have seen an email about it this week, is that we're just about to acquire Maldorf House in Chawton Park, which, subject to planning, will be demolished and rebuilt as 52 apartments for families experiencing homelessness right in the heart of Chawton, close to local amenities. And it's going to be high quality, owned and managed by the council. And the brilliant thing about that is, if we don't need temporary accommodation in the future, those will be social homes. So it's a win-win situation. We've also got a 10-year leasing scheme, and we've got 350 properties on that. And what we're doing is for everyone that we get within the city, we're giving up one that's not in the city. So we think it's going to take about 2 or 3 years to get all of those temporary accommodation properties within the city of Manchester. So I just wanted to give you a flavour of the work that we're doing, because honestly, this is one of the most important priorities for the council. And as Councillor Bridges said, at last we have a Labour government serious about solving homelessness and not causing homelessness. So we've got the national plan.
Councillor Midgley.
Oh, sorry, published in December. We've got the Renters' Rights Act. And we are just really keen that as a Labour Council, working with the Labour government, we are going to end homelessness for everyone in this city. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And the Liberal Democrats would like to welcome the motion and thank Councillor Johnson and Councillor Marlow for bringing it here. And also thanks to the MEN for the campaign that they've done on this issue. Regardless, Lord Mayor, of the colour of the rosette that you wear at election time, I think everyone here will agree that some of the most harrowing things that can come into our inbox are those families that find themselves ripped out of their communities, somewhere that they might not know, quite emotional, families ripped apart sometimes. And they find themselves without a home, and home is an interesting definition, and it is quite frustrating, it's quite worrying actually from a councillor's perspective, because you feel a little bit helpless. It's quite hard to navigate the system. It's often really hard to make sure that they get the advocacy that they need. But one of the really important things that we can do is help create a constant for those children, and often that constant is their school. And school becomes much more of a place of learning. It becomes a home for those people, for those children. And I think this is why it's so important, not just to champion some of the stuff that Manchester has led, but actually make sure that we can deliver this across Greater Manchester, which is why this motion is so important. Often the system is against us. People are fighting evictions, they're up against it. Families have to find nowhere to live. They have to be literally homeless and appear here at the town hall before we can make sure they get that advocacy. And so this motion will raise awareness. It will hopefully put a mission out to the local authorities across Greater Manchester to take it as seriously as Manchester takes it. And I welcome the motion, and I hope and I think it deserves the cross-party support in this chamber today. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
I just want to reiterate how important the motion is that my colleague has brought to us today. As I was one of those children that probably needed that support when I was younger, and there's hundreds and hundreds like me at the same age as me that have gone through something like that. So I just think it's wonderful that the motion has been brought through today. And I just want to reiterate how important it is. And, you know, let's not stop here. Let's just keep going for the children and, you know, in the future. And let's hope there will be a time where no children are in temporary accommodation. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And yeah, I welcome the amended motion, and it's good to see the cross-party consensus on this in terms of tackling what is a really key issue for us as a city, and it's a key part of our housing strategy to reduce reliance on temporary accommodation for those experiencing homelessness, and the work that we're doing to tackle tenancy fraud, bring empty homes back into use, enable right-sizing, and obviously we really welcome the ending of Section 21 in the Renters' Rights Act. 35% of our homelessness cases come through the use of no-fault evictions in Section 21, so it's a transformational change that will come in from May the 1st, and we thank the Labour government who've been bold enough to bring that ahead as previous governments were reluctant to do. But we do face a homelessness crisis, there's no doubting about that. And one of the key transformational changes to really tackle that is the building of new social and affordable housing. So it's good to see that in 2025 we did see 791 new social homes built in our city, of which 60% were for social rent. And I really welcome the support that we've had from Labour councillors to deliver that in all wards across the city. But I would just highlight how we have had repeated opposition in recent months to new social housing. Surprisingly, given the crisis we face, in Moss Side, 130 new social rent homes from the Green Party, and just in November and December, 50 new social rent homes in the heart of Chiltern by Councillor Kilpatrick at Planning Committee. So we do welcome the cross-party consensus on this, but it's about deeds, not just words, to deliver the homes and the measures to tackle homelessness in our city.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson, you have the right to reply.
Thank you. Yeah. What this speech has made me think about, and which I have been worried about, and, you know, obviously, you know, we seem to be all in agreement, more or less, is the role of the schools. Because they're already doing a lot, and obviously it's good that they've been written to and to give them the help. But from my experience talking with head teachers in my ward, it's overwhelming. They take so much of the burden of poverty, homelessness, helping deprived children from deprived backgrounds. And so it just not just needs to go around the housing issue and increase of housing, but we need to have legislation and procedures in place so schools can actually go back to what they're doing is teaching children. They have so many of the social services they have to provide, and because they're, you know, all good people, they wash the clothes of children who are, you know, where the family can't provide that, especially in the difficult circumstances of temporary accommodation or in other cases. So that it just made me, our conversation made me think that we really need to change the whole system, because it all depends in the moment on people who just really care and give a lot in institutions. So that's why this whole matter, everything we address, the housing, travel, poverty, is so important. Thank you, and thank you for, I assume we all will vote for this motion, so thank you for that. Thank you.
I will now put the motions to the vote. All those in favour say aye. Aye. All those against the motion say no. Are there any abstentions? Thank you. I declare the motion. Thank you. I declare the motion to be carried.